So today what we're going to be looking at is a plethora of new Fallout 76 news, predominantly in the form of Bethesda responses to just kind of some of the major issues, concerns users have been raising. The official Bethesda account actually made a Reddit post addressing certain things like quality of life features on PC, that being push-to-talk, FOV, etc. But even beyond that, some of the glitches and concerns people have been having. But then also on the other side of this video, I want to look at hacking, as it's been a major issue that has come up and a concern many are holding. I think the discussion on hacking is going to be particularly important because there's been a ton of misinformation spread around, so I encourage you guys to actually watch that part, but again, I'll go over that second. And also my friendly reminder that at 350,000 subscribers, I'm going to make a cooking video from the Fallout cookbook, so if you guys do want to subscribe and get to that goal faster, hey, there's a button down there. So Bethesda's post on the Fallout 76 subreddit is great. I think it's exactly what a number of us have been wanting and hoping for. My only real criticism of it is I feel like it's almost a day late and $1 short. They said they've been reading through a bunch of comments and in this detail some of the things they will be addressing and their stance on certain other things. And they expand to say that they have been really paying attention to some of the social channels, specifically Reddit, their official forums, Twitter, and Facebook. So what do they say explicitly? Well, first and foremost, they address 21.9 support or widescreen monitor support. This is something they've actually touched on in other forum posts, and they say here that it'll be out either at release or just after it. As far as larger stash sizes go, a huge complaint throughout the community, they basically mentioned that the stash size limit actually gets easier as time goes on, and I think they have a good point here. If you spec into the strength tree and actually get some of those perk cards, it certainly makes dealing with your carry weight a lot easier. For me at least, it almost felt like a necessity. I had to be dumping points into strength because, well, I needed it to walk around and play this game comfortably. They do confirm here that they're going to be increasing this in the future, but based on the wording, based on how they phrase it, that it does get easier as you level up, so maybe people are overreacting a little bit. I would speculate that we're not going to be getting unlimited stash or like 10,000 stash limit. It'll probably still be fairly reasonable, still something you do have to think about and actually put some time and effort into, just hopefully not as much as you do right now. Then they actually touch on push-to-talk. So what they say here is, I think, extremely interesting. They mention how the reason there's no push-to-talk in the game is it's meant to encourage role-playing, interaction between players that don't necessarily know each other just by kind of walking up to each other. You could just start talking. It's very natural and fluid. And you know what? I honestly totally agree with them in theory. If you watch this video by RT Game, it illustrates perfectly how good not having a push-to-talk feature is in-game. It really did highlight that other people are in this world and alive because, well, you could hear them. They go on to explicitly say that we like to start with encouraging player interaction and we'll look into adding this in the future. So from that, my takeaway is it's probably likely to be a feature in the future, but not definite. And I think that's insane. The example Bethesda proposes here and the example I showed you guys earlier are both really ideal scenarios. In reality, things don't play out quite like that. In my own experience, not having push-to-talk is immensely frustrating to the point where I just turn off talking in-game altogether. Bethesda has touted numerous times as to how this is a very streamable game, and there's definitely been a push in that area. It's really awkward trying to play with a group of people in-game but also communicate with your chat. I would just start randomly talking or have to wait for somebody to finish talking to answer a question that somebody that was watching the stream asked. A lot of times it either led to confusion where people didn't know if I was talking to them in-game or talking to my stream out of game. So before streaming a lot of times, I would make a conscious decision. Either I was going to play with talking to other people in-game and by proxy not really be super interactive with chat, or alternatively just be interactive with chat and turn off voices in-game. There really wasn't a middle ground for me, and I think push-to-talk would be a great asset in creating that middle ground. On the topic of the Fov Slider, they mentioned that it's not going to be coming. Basically, it would create a lot of issues with clipping and animation glitches. And I know this is probably going to upset a lot of people, but my big question is, how are they going to actually handle the Fov slider? There's a lot of fixes you could read online as to how to change the Fov manually in Fallout 4 on PC. This involves changing the INI files, but another thing that could be changed in the INI files was your FPS cap. Previously, you could change it so your FPS could be uncapped, but we also saw a bunch of glitches with your speed increasing and things like that. In the latest patch, Bethesda actually addressed this, so now the FPS is capped at 62.5 frames. This, to me, is a pretty imperfect solution. I'm somebody that has a high refresh rate monitor, and being able to play this game at 90 FPS was nice. It looked smooth, it looked great on my monitor, but now with this new restriction, I can't do that. I wanted to highlight that because I'm curious again in the future if Bethesda will actually restrict FOV changes in the INI file. So even though right now you're playing with the FOV you're happy with, and even though yes, you do get some glitches, Bethesda might be like, nope, you gotta play on our FOV, and this is what it's going to be set at. One major concern here is you could actually see through walls sometimes when you have this FOV. That could be seen as an exploit, so I could see them actually laying down the law for this one. Outside of that, they touched on a few other things like exploits, hearing loud noises as you're playing through the game, a bug where your hunger wouldn't be satisfied, and even some glitches with the social menu. Those are all just bugs, and they kind of touch on how a lot of these are either fixed or definitely will be fixed. One thing that I think is very telling from this post is, one, Bethesda obviously is paying attention, but I think it also highlights what they're paying attention to. There's a lot of complaints from the community that aren't on this post, and seemingly does this mean that they're not going to be getting addressed anytime soon or really aren't as much on Bethesda's radar. But moving on, let's talk about the hacking problem that Fallout 76 has, or does it? This post on Reddit actually blew up over the past couple of days. A number of you were asking me about it. If you actually look at the like to dislike ratio, it is mostly upvoted. It seems like most people agreed or took interest in what was being said here. And I think this post does a really good job at highlighting one of the big issues that I find on the Fallout 76 subreddit in particular. Most of what's said in this post is wrong. Bethesda has responded to this, a lot of other users have actually come out talking about this, and yet none of those responses actually got as much attention or even close to as much attention as this particular post. More or less, it's a post with next to no proof that makes a lot of claims, it uses a lot of technical words, and I guess to the everyday user, that's enough to convince them that, hey, it must be true. It's just astounding to me that 3,000 people upvoted this with little evidence of validity. The only thing that is really provided as evidence is that this lockpicking mod has popped up, and largely the claim made by this post is a lot of the communication between the servers in Fallout 76 and the client is unencrypted and thus can be intercepted and modified. This creating a scenario where Fallout 76 would have a much larger hacking problem than a lot of other games due to the engine that is being used here, that being a fundamentally single player one. As I kind of mentioned before, a lot of this just isn't true. It's not how things actually work. Once we get the servers up, there certainly seems to be certain things that are concerning, but not as wide-reaching or not as huge of a problem as this initial post makes it out to be. Bethesda officially responded to this through IGN, saying that many of the claims in the thread are either inaccurate or based on incorrect assumptions. The community has, however, called to attention several issues that our teams are already actively tracking and planning to roll out fixes for. Our goal is always to deliver a great experience for all our players. Cheating or hacking will not be tolerated. We know our fan base is passionate about modding and customizing their experience in our worlds, and it's something we intend to support down the road. Honestly, I think that's a pretty bad response. It's very unspecific, and I feel like the generality of it almost makes it sound insincere or like the original claim could be true. But reading up further on this, and trust me, I've spent a lot of time reading about this and trying to actually figure out what things mean, largely the takeaway is Fallout 76 is a pretty encrypted game, and it's not going to be significantly easier to hack this one compared to a lot of other games that are out there right now. Now, most of this is secondhand because I don't have a huge technical background, especially not in networking, but talking to several people that do have way more of a technical background in networking than me, I wouldn't be stressing about this. There also are hacks popping up for Fallout 76, but again, there's hacks for almost every game. Those hacks aren't using some totally unique exploit that is exclusive to Fallout 76, it's using similar methods as you see in games like Fortnite or Call of Duty, or at least that's what it seems like from the outside looking in based on the information and data they have. So hopefully that puts some of you at ease about the Fallout 76 hacking fiasco. I think a big question moving forward is how quickly Bethesda will respond to issues with their game. The way it looks right now, it's not super quick. If you look at how many issues there were on the PC beta's launch, and then how many issues are actually resolved in the current build, a bunch have been, but also a bunch haven't been. Either way, that's pretty much Bethesda's response to a number of the pressing issues with Fallout 76. In this video, I really tried to lay out some of the facts, but also give my opinion. Hopefully the information's laid out in a way that you can take it and form your own opinion that may be different than mine. That's totally okay. At the end of the day, the game is largely playable, even if it has a few faults that personally would affect my review score of it. Before we end things off though, we do have today's psychology fun fact of the day. That's actually going to be on helping. So there was this study that looked at the 24 largest cities in the United States and how much they would help a random person. That ranging from various things, from directions, breaking a bigger bill into a smaller bills, helping somebody that dropped some stuff, etc., etc. Well, what they found was there's actually a negative correlation between population and likelihood to help somebody. So what that means is the more people you have in a given city, the less likely any individual person would help somebody else. This study was conducted in the mid-90s, so I would say some of the data might change slightly, but if anything, I would have to imagine overall people would help less now because like phones and social media, more connection between person to person. But either way, the 3 worst ranked cities on this list were New York City, LA, and San Francisco. Among the 6 best cities, 4 of those were actually in the South, the top 3 being Knoxville, Kansas City, and Louisville. Another interesting finding from the study was as the individual prosperity, so like how much money individual people had in the city went up, more of them would help others. So like in New York City, where the average person isn't super well off, there was less of a likelihood to help compared to some of the other cities where the average person was a bit more well off. So what does this mean? Well, some of the theories behind this are that maybe just seeing so many freaking people almost desensitizes you a little bit. You're very focused on what you actually have to do and not really the group as a whole, so then you may care less about somebody in need of help. You're just going to do whatever you have to do. Either way, that's it for this one. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I should have another one coming out later today, so you can look forward to that or not look forward to that. But with that, I hope to see you guys all next time. Later.